Hello, welcome to Nightmare Flicks. I am Nate, you are you, and welcome to the Road to Halloween Kills, a brand new review series on this channel that I could not be any more excited about. I couldn't be any more passionate about it either, because if I'm being completely honest, completely transparent, this is the whole reason Nightmare Flicks, this YouTube channel, exists. Because I am a passionate, excited fanboy of the Halloween franchise, and I've had my mind's eye on Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends from the inception of this YouTube channel. It's always been about getting to this moment where I could finally look at my favorite film franchise and talk about each of the entries with fellow Halloween fans. So that's really the biggest thing I'm looking to take away from this. I'm looking to sit down, really break down each one of these films, enjoy them all in a nice little marathon over the next week, and then come talk to you guys and share ideas about the films. Here, what's your least favorite Halloween? What is your hot take? I want to know what the opinions are out there. I'm glad this time is finally here, and I can't wait to be sitting down in October and watching Halloween Kills on opening night, then getting right back in front of this camera and talking to you guys, and then maybe doing several videos on my thoughts about that film, talking about what's going to be coming in Halloween Ends, doing a franchise ranking. It's always been about this. I'm so glad the moment is finally here. So of course, the road to Halloween Kills, it has to start at the beginning. Our first step has to start with the night he came home. John Carpenter's Halloween 1978 was made over the course of 20 days. Just 20 days and on a measly budget of $320,000. Safe to say, the odds were against this movie. There's really no reason whatsoever this should have changed the entire trajectory of horror cinema as we know it. But without it, we don't really get Jason. We don't get A Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger. We don't get all the things going on in that slasher genre if this movie does not exist. But this movie is so much more than a run-of-the-mill slasher. It's not by the numbers. In fact, it created the numeric system that all the other slashers would then try to employ. So before we talk about the story, we talk about the key elements of the film that make it so transcendent and so magical, let's talk about the key players. And you may think I'm going to start with John Carpenter, but I'm actually not going to, because I first want to shout out Irwin Yablans, because I don't think he gets his due. I don't think he gets enough credit for this really being his brainchild, but that's what it was. Irwin Yablans was sitting back one day and he's like, you know what? I feel like something's being missed in horror right now. That, since Psycho and Black Christmas, people haven't really taken that and run with it. There's still a lot of really fresh, fun, exciting stuff that could be done. What if we had a movie about babysitter murders? But beyond that, what if it all transpired over the course of one intense night? That we had a killer that not just killed, it wasn't about gore, it was about something more. It was moody, it was dark, it was atmospheric, and he stalked his victims. But this movie had a real voyeuristic quality to it. What if we did all that? I think that movie would be very profitable. I think people would love it. I think it would make an impact. And he was absolutely right. But even then, beyond that, he sat back and he continued to ponder this new notion. And he was like, but what night? Because sure, it'd be cool if this happened on any night. It could happen on any Friday, right? I was talking to my girlfriend and she was like, you know what? That's a really real kind of primal fear to be like, you know what? I'm a babysitter. It is up to me to take care of these children and I have to play hero should anything go wrong. I am now their temporary guardian and it all falls on my shoulders, even though I am but a teenage girl myself and there may be some grown man out there with evil intentions. That she felt that as a babysitter. So Irwin Yablans is onto something, but then to go, you know what, but I need a particular night. I need a special night. I need a night that will resonate. If only Halloween was available. Can you imagine horror and Halloween? That's like peanut butter and jelly, just goes together. Too bad there's probably a dozen horror films that have been called Halloween, right? So he goes and he does his research. Sure enough, can you believe it? No movie before Halloween was called Halloween, but not even that. No predecessor to Halloween had even included the word Halloween in the title. So we got fair game. Let's get on the field. Let's play ball. I need to find a director is what Irwin Yablans is thinking. And he's familiar with a film called Assault on Precinct 13, directed by John Carpenter. And John Carpenter, he's fresh out of USC, so he's attainable. So he has to sit down with John Carpenter, and the rest is history, all because John Carpenter was willing to go ahead and do this movie for $300,000. When a lot of people would have balked at that number, because that's really nothing for a film. And then have to do it within 20 days, that's a task. But John Carpenter was like, you know what? In exchange, I will do this movie. I love horror. I grew up on it. And of course, we know that because he would go ahead and make so many great suspenseful thrillers and horror movies. And he'd pay homage to things like Howard Hawks' The Thing. We know this now. But really, as an up-and-comer, he was just kind of foaming at the mouth. Like, let's go. I want an opportunity. Let's go. Yes, I want to make a horror movie. That's like a bucket list item for me. And I think that passion and mastery of the genre really comes through with Halloween. But basically, this whole tangent, what I started at was he basically said, yes, Erwin Yablans, I will take this Herculean task on, and I will make you a movie that will go ahead and prevail over the odds. And I will do all this, but I need my name above the title. I need this to be John Carpenter's Halloween. And of course, Erwin Yablans was like, yeah, okay, buddy, do whatever you want. This little indie project, this movie probably won't have the impact that I'm searching for it to have, but go ahead. If you can give me that, then by all means, you deserve it. You deserve to get a little bit of the back end and to get a little bit of profit, but you'll probably never see the first dollar because what are the odds, right? And really, what were the odds? But you didn't really know what you were getting, did you, Erwin Yablans? You saw some promise in Assault on Precinct 13, but you didn't really realize just how much of an auteur and generational talent John Carpenter was. And I say auteur because that's what he was. That's what he is. You cannot separate John Carpenter from the first Halloween. Halloween and John Carpenter are synonymous. The lifeblood of Halloween is John Carpenter. You can't separate the two. I mean, this has his writing. It has his direction. It has his eye, his flair, his ideas. It has his score. It has all of it. And so if you strip him away from it, this movie is not the same. And I think we see that with a lot of the sequels. But luckily we had him. And like I said, the rest of horror history, it would never be the same. This put us on a new track, a new road. And I really think horror is better for it. Of course I do. Look at all these posters. You know, look at all this. The Jason stuff, the Freddy stuff. It's not here, though, without Halloween and without John Carpenter. Of course, there are others to thank, too, though, and you got to thank Mustafa Akkad for financing this thing and really taking a gamble. And he was nervous, too. Erwin Yablans really had to kind of put his foot down and be a hard salesman and be like, look, it's going to work. And it's only $300,000. And then that kind of wasn't working. So he kind of looked over to John Carpenter and he was like, $300,000, maybe that's a little too steep. Maybe Mustafa doesn't have the pockets for it. And Mustafa Akkad was a proud man, and he said, what? No, I will fund your movie. But inside, he was having all these reservations and these trepidations, and he actually has said that it was probably going to go wrong. At least that's what he thought. Because when he hears that a movie costs a ton of money, he understands that a lot can go wrong with that, and you may not make your money back. But also, on the other hand, if a movie costs no money, then there's red flags. And there's a lot of reason to believe that this movie won't have the funding and resources that it needs, and somebody is getting ahead of themselves. They're looking inward and being like, no, I can do it. I can transcend. I can go beyond. I don't need all these resources. I can make something happen. I am that good. But most people just really cannot do that. So Mustafa Akkad was like, you know what? Okay, it's kind of chump change as far as movies are concerned. I'll give it to you. Hopefully I end up making a couple bucks. And boy, did he make a couple bucks. All right, let's go ahead now and talk about Deborah Hill, though, because I would be remiss to talk about this film and not talk about the contributions of Deborah Hill. And fun fact, the opening shot, that classic, iconic opening, that long take where we follow the point of view of young Michael Myers in his clown suit going up the stairs to kill Judith, the person actually wearing the clown suit in that moment is Deborah Hill. So there's a fun fact for you, although I'm sure if you're a huge Halloween person, you may have known that already. But also, she shared a lot of ideas with Carpenter, and they had a nice mind meld over the presentation of this film and what it needed to include and how to make it feel real and how to make it fun and to make these characters likable, how to attain all the aspirations for this film. And I don't think it would have reached the same heights and had the same success without Deborah Hill. You look at the three girls here, you look at Laurie, Annie, and Linda, and I think that little trio is way more fun and authentic feeling than so many other slasher movies' female cast. They each have very distinct personalities, but you can see them actually going to a real world high school. And you like each of them for different reasons, even if at times they have personality traits that are not ideal. But they feel real and they're vibrant, and you don't really want to see them get killed. So when they do, it hurts all the more. But that female voice, it was written by Deborah Hill. So these wonderful characters that we now know and love and totally quote, it's all because of Deborah Hill. So major shout out to Deborah Hill. And then of course, last one, and I promise we'll talk about the movie. I want to talk about Tommy Lee Wallace and what he did with set design, how he overcame the challenge of making a California set film seem like an autumn set film in Haddonfield, Illinois. And of course, if you scan the background, you can be like, oh, I spotted a palm tree. But all in all, he did really good for not having a whole lot of money at his disposal, not having a whole lot of resources. You know, he put in hard work. He bagged up a bunch of leaves, scattered them about, got a fan, threw them out in front of the fan. So as Laurie Strode walked by, you saw brown and orange leaves blowing in front of her, and you got those autumn vibes. You got that feel. The way he outfitted these characters and these settings. For example, when we talk about set design, when Laurie is in her room talking on the phone to Annie, we see a James Ensor picture. And that's the type of thing I'm talking about here. Just going the extra mile to make this film way more than just a slasher film. Because James Ensor was a surrealist painting who was most known for doing these very creepy, surreal works where people donned horrific masks, much like The Shape, much like Michael Myers. And if you look at this film with a discerning eye and you really kind of comb through everything, you will see that so much thought was put into this film. And when you look at the classroom scene and they talk about fate, and you talk about this collision course with destiny and all the things that lay ahead of this innocent Laurie Strode character, that is what I'm saying. So the works of Tommy Lee Wallace and building a middle America town in Pasadena, it works. And of course, the mask, the best mask of all time. I did a list of the best horror mask of all time. And of course, Michael's mask won, and that's Tommy Lee Wallace's work. John Carpenter gave him a task, go get me a white mask, a face that's kind of devoid of any emotion or anything like that, but it has humanish features, but it's just bold and striking and unsettling. Can you do that for me? And Tommy Lee Wallace absolutely did that for him. Went out, he found the William Shatner mask, he cut off the sideburns, he widened the eyes, made them rounder, kind of sanded some features, put the white into the face, did all this, and the rest is history. We get the best mask of all time. We get the boogeyman. We get this guy that's going to stalk and kill in our nightmares for the rest of time. The face of the franchise. We get Michael Myers. So thank you, Tommy Lee Wallace. Now, of course, before we proceed, I have to talk about Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. And really, she nailed it. This started as stunt casting. They wanted JLC because she was the daughter of the face of Psycho, Janet Leigh. The woman that we all know from being stabbed in the shower. Horror history, right? So of course you include her in your little indie film, and it's a gimmick and it's stunt casting. It was supposed to get word of mouth going. It's a nice little treat for horror fans. Nothing more. Maybe it makes that bottom line look a little bit better when everything is done and the dust settles. But they weren't counting on her having such a wonderful performance, that she wasn't just some Hollywood kid, silver spoon in mouth, entitled but lacking ability. No, she was capable and then some, and she gave us a wonderful final girl, really the prototypical final girl. And that's one of the ways this film really broke ground and set a template for others, and it comes through the performance of Jamie Lee Curtis. She plays a character of duality. She plays a character who has no self-assurance, really lacks for self-esteem, but also really boasts this quiet inner strength and is such a wonderful guardian and hero to these children she looks after. She doesn't really know where she fits in the world, but on this night, she definitely fit in, and a lesser girl would have expired. She would have been off by Michael Myers, and the children, they may not have been safe either, but we got Jamie Lee Curtis. We got the ideal final girl, and the rest is history. And that is why we keep bringing her back, and we can't divorce ourselves from Laurie Strode. This story needs her, and that's why we're probably going to see her at the end of Halloween Ends having one last face-off with Michael Myers, because that's poetic, and that's really the only route this franchise can go. And then, of course, Donald Pleasence. I've always loved Donald Pleasence, and I would argue to you he might be more important than even Laurie Strode to this franchise. There's just something about Donald Pleasence as a foil to Michael Myers, and he really provides all the exposition, but he does it in a Donald Pleasence manner, which is to say, a manner that could not be met by any others. And thank God John Carpenter didn't get his way, because he wanted Peter Cushing for the role. But of course, Cushing is coming off of Star Wars, and he goes, I'm coming off of Star Wars, man. I'm not doing a $320,000 indie horror film. Are you kidding me? Christopher Lee also passed. And while Christopher Lee has gone on to say that's his biggest regret for his career, that he wishes he could have been Loomis, looking back, he didn't know that this film would be what it was. I'm glad that he passed. I'm so glad that he passed, because this role is all Donald Pleasence's. And he transformed it, he elevated it, and he really just kind of brought the whole production up. He got 20 grand for this movie. That was set aside for him. When you hear 320 grand, that 20 grand is what it took to get Donald Pleasence. And really, he was kind of begrudgingly getting on board because you have this young group of filmmakers. It's horror. It's not really what he does. He's been in so many elevated, big, prestigious films, big franchise films. And now he's going to go do this little indie project. But he did it as kind of like a nod or a gift to his daughter who loved the music and Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13 and thought that he was a cool guy. And was like, Dad, you should really work with him. If you could collaborate with him and do one of his pictures, that would be amazing. And so he did it. And the rest is history. And he takes this role that really is just all about expounding exposition and just dumping background.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
And he elevates it. And really, anybody else, if they had been in that role, it probably would have felt campy because he has long monologues that really talk about some heavy, weighty stuff and really try to fill in the gaps and make Michael Myers out to be the actual flesh and bone boogeyman. And that could have been done very clumsily. And you need a very special delivery. You really need a special film screen presence in order to make that happen. And luckily, Donald Pleasence had all of that within him and was able to exude all of that and really take the Loomis character and make him a horror icon. But then also, I think Donald Pleasence goes a long way in making Michael Myers a horror icon. So thank God he got on board. Whew, all right, we can finally just talk about the movie itself. This is going to be a long video, but the opening, right away we have something different. That this is a special film. When it opens and you instantly realize that we have a point of view shot, that we are in this lurking psychopath's mind. We are seeing through their eyes, and this is all coming to you through the employment of new state-of-the-art equipment that John Carpenter wanted to kind of get experimental and use the Steadicam, the Panavision. It hadn't really been used a whole lot at this point, but he knew that this would get his vision across, that this would put us in this killer's mind. We would see what he was seeing, and that would have a profound effect on us, and that would chill us to the bone, and that would create a all-time great opening to a film. But then also, we do this long take, right? And you never break focus, you never cut away, and that really just keeps you rooted in the moment. It keeps you on pins and needles, and you can tell that something is going on here. When you see Deborah Hill's arm reach down and pick up the clown mask, you're like, okay, and then stabbing, and you hear, Michael! And you think to yourself, wait, Michael? Wasn't she just downstairs and her boyfriend is like, oh, what about your brother? Where's Michael? And he's got to be out trick-or-treating trying somewhere. And you're like, is this girl's little brother killing her? What is happening here? Look at this shot, though. Look at this point of view shot. And we're looking at the knife. We're looking back down at her half-naked body. And we're seeing the blood. And we're like, oh, man, this is going to be a ride. This is going to be something else. But little do you know that the killer is going to then proceed outside. You're going to see the parents' car pull up, come to a stop, get out, and then be just dumbfounded and in shock. Unmask the killer. And there he is. A 6-year-old Michael Myers, looking innocent, looking sweet, little cherub face, and his little Halloween outfit. And you're like, oh my goodness, what a way to start a film. And you can just stop right there. And even though this is an indie film, we can get ambitious with it. And we can stop everything right there, really let the moment really hit us. Let it all sink in, what just transpired, what we have witnessed. And we'll do a nice little pan out with the crane and just go ahead like that and then cut to present day. That's how you open a film. That is an all-time great opening. I've talked about in the past, I think the beginning of Scream is the greatest opening moment to any horror film anywhere. But if you wanted to say Halloween, I wouldn't really argue with you. I can get where you're coming from. It's part of why I love the film and so many people do, because right away, right off the bat, you're getting something special, something transcendent, something better than you see really anywhere else. And then we do go ahead and cut forward 15 years, and it's just more movie magic. Dean Cundey's cinematography, he's really showing off in the way that he uses darkness in this movie, but he also knows how to use the contrast of light, having really cool blues or the occasional kind of tungsten orangish brownish color to where it sucks you in, and that's what you focus on. And then you couple that with these really big wide shots Carpenter had to do because of the lack of funding, and it all works. It creates this atmosphere to where you feel the suburbia. You feel the mood, you feel the tension, you feel the atmosphere, and you feel everything in that shot. And you have so much darkness that anything could be there. And we have this killer that likes to lurk in the shadows and take his time and stalk you. And you are now stalking the frame looking for him. He is very often pocketed somewhere in that darkness. And that is something that this movie does that a lot of the sequels don't do. And that's why they're not really as good as this film. Because it takes its time, unsettles you. It makes every shot count. Every frame matters. There's something that you need to take from every bit in this movie. And a lot of it has to do, like I said, with Dean Cundey's cinematography. A lot of it's just really interesting to the eye, or it adds to the tension, like I said, or this fear because you're looking back and forth. You're like, oh my God, he's right there. And then it goes back. It's like, where did he go? Or please look out your window. Please, the shape is right there. And you're just sucked in. And then, of course, the way that it really captures that autumn vibe. And again, talk about Tommy Lee Wallace being so important to overcoming that Hollywood and Pasadena setting. A lot of that's Dean Cundey as well, because he creates this really cool autumn crisp atmosphere with his lighting and with the way things are set up. So of course we got to talk about Dean Cundey. I wish a lot of the other sequels, if you can't bring back Dean Cundey, that you at least kind of strive to recreate it a little bit more, because it has this really atmospheric, chilling type of thing going on, and it really bolsters the effect of the film. And when I talk about cutting back from the flashback of him as a child and then going to the more present day for this film, and you're there at Smith's Grove and it's dark and it's stormy and you have the red light flashing, of course that's an effect. And of course it gets you on edge. And then you have these lunatics out there stumbling around in the dark, wet night and their white cloth. That is a great horrorscape right there. The cinematography is great, but also the direction is great. I love when they cut to Marion and she's in the car and she's backed up as far as she can because she's just seen Michael scale the top of her vehicle, and then you get that shot of the hand. And I like that they don't just immediately go to this. So many films would have immediately gone to Michael smashing the window and then some sort of gory nonsense would have unfolded. Instead, you kind of see the hand and you see like a wind up and you go, oh my God. It gives your brain that one little second it needs to fully generate the full effect and understand what's about to happen here. And you see him smash the window. And right then you know, oh, this little boy was cold-blooded and psychopathic as a child, but he is a much larger looming threat now. He has real power and it looks like he's going to stop at nothing to accomplish his goals. And then, of course, we get all this great dialogue between Loomis and between Marion Chambers, and then you get all the other dialogue from Loomis, and it fills in the gap about this boy.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
And you realize, as he's saying all this, that this is that night. And I've seen this kid as a child, and there was no humanity in his face after killing his sister and being confronted by his parents catching him red-handed. There was nothing. There was nothing at all. And then I saw him break out of Smith's Grove. I saw him smash the window. I saw everything he's been willing to do. I am on board with Dr. Loomis. He doesn't feel campy. He doesn't feel over the top. He doesn't feel like some exaggerated harbinger of doom. He is the voice of reason, if anything. And I really wish Sheriff Brackett and everybody else would listen to him and heed his warning. If only you knew. And it sets up this almost verbal irony to where other people are kind of placating him, or, okay, yeah, we'll see. I'll try to do what you're saying, but really just chill out, Doctor. Why are you so scared?
Seems to me you're just plain scared.
And you're like, you need to be scared. You don't know what type of evil is afoot. You don't know what's lurking around in the shadows of Haddonfield right now. Great stuff. And then, of course, we're finally introduced to our final girl. We are introduced to Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and she's automatically likable. You understand what she's about. She's a good girl. She's got her head on her shoulders. She wants to kind of break out and be more like her friends and come out of her shell, but she's struggling to do that. And she just seems like she wouldn't have a chance in the world, right? Not against Michael Myers, not against the Shape, not against the Boogeyman. She's too tepid. She's too timid. She's too fearful. She can't even ask a boy to go to the dance with her. She can't go ahead and present her feelings outwardly. How is she going to take on a madman with a knife? It's interesting stuff, but you're rooting for it because she's sitting there kind of calming the fears of Tommy Doyle, and she's an attentive babysitter, and she's a good friend, and she gives all these people this patience and this doting. So you got a wonderful character here, but then also you see her and Tommy go up to the old Myers house, and you get a nice scary moment where they're pretty much on death's doorstep and don't even know it, and the Grim Reaper himself, Michael Myers, is there behind the door looking at them, and there you go. There's like a new inciting incident if we didn't already have one. That's where it all starts, because Michael is a stalker. Regardless of how the sequels want to unfold, he is a stalker. And that is an integral ingredient in Michael Myers. You have to have him stalking. So he sees these characters, he hears Tommy talking about the Myers house, all of this, and he just latches on. And I don't think enough people talk about that. I wish we got more of that in the sequels. And though I'm excited for Halloween Kills, and I can't wait to see him do all the gory, grisly, bloody, bigger, badder, meaner type of stuff, he should always be rooted in the moody, atmospheric voyeurism and the stalking and that form of slashing that doesn't really necessitate a lot of blood because you've been unwitted and unnerved with his slow stalking you throughout your entire day. He looks at Tommy at school. He looks at Laurie at school. He follows them through town. You get the shot in front of the hardware store with Brackett and with Loomis, and he's driving by. He's driving by the girls and watching them. He has the hard stop when Andy yells at him. He's doing all of these things. You get the moments where they walk past the car, and unbeknownst to them, Michael is standing up, and you get that amazing little bit of music. You get that little tinge that just perfectly punctuates the moment from John Carpenter. It's perfect. It's a wonderful exploration of this character. It's such a simple character on paper because he doesn't talk, and he has a simple motivation. But through the walk of Castle and through the lens of Carpenter and the music of Carpenter, he is so much more. And so many of the latter films really lack that, but this film, it has it in spades. And they take their time really employing those elements and having fun with them. And of course, any all-time great classic, any five-star film, you need the stars to align. You need a little bit of magic to happen, some sort of unexplainable phenomenon where things just all fall in the right place. And that happens because as Michael is stalking Laurie and he's watching her, you know, you have Jamie Lee Curtis kind of improvising that song of, I wish I had you all alone. You know, she's singing to herself and it's just an ad lib. It's not supposed to mean anything else. She wasn't directed that. That's not written in the script. That comes from her mind, but it works because that's probably what's running in the inner monologue of Michael Myers in that moment. And so just like the James Ensor poster and so many other things in this film, it's little moments like that I think it has such a lasting impression on the fan base, but the community as a whole, and on film critics as a whole, because there's so much within the film that was either accidental or improvisational or what have you, but it just all came together so perfectly and meshed and created something that you could really get down deeper into if you wanted to. There's been so many essays, so much literature produced about this film, and it has so much to do with Michael Myers and the stalking element. So I really hope we get a lot more of that. I think you need your boogeyman to stalk. Hopefully we get that in the future. So if we fast forward, we now have all these likable characters in the midst of their Halloween night. And you know, Linda and Annie, they are doing normal teenager things. They're trying to live it up. They're trying to have the best Halloween night they can with their boyfriends. And unfortunately for Laurie, she doesn't have a boyfriend. She's just too in her shell. She's too repressed. And that's why it's kind of funny that people would go on to talk about how this movie was almost puritanical and it condemned those who were sexually free and it was anti-woman and all of this. There are definitely slashers that misunderstood this film and they did that. And it became a by the numbers, you have sex, you die. You've seen Scream, you know. But that's not what was going on here. And it actually makes John Carpenter laugh too, because he's even said, no, it was really no more than a plot device to make the characters feel very real and organic and authentic. That's what teenagers do. But it also creates a scenario in which their guard is down and why they are susceptible to these murders. Thus, Laurie, she's already kind of timid and a little bit paranoid and on edge, and she has nobody to have sex with. Therefore, she's still on high alert and nothing's going to get past her, unlike poor Annie and Linda and others. So there you go. If you're one of the people that's like, no, it's just to slash them up. You have sex, you die. Yeah, that did happen, but that's not the motivation for why it happened. And it's one of the reasons why Halloween is more than that. but also the kills themselves. Because we've had this gradual buildup, we've had the slow burn, we've seen Michael stalk, and we've had all of this going on, all this tension. We've seen him in frame with these characters so many times, and then he's gone. When they do die, and because we do like the characters, it's meaningful, it's memorable. And almost all the kills in this movie are iconic. Of course, you have the opening kill with Judith Myers being killed by her very young sibling. Of course, that's memorable. Of course, Bob being killed and pinned to the wall and us getting our first ever head tilt. Of course, that's iconic. And it's been ripped off by a bunch of other horror movies because it made an impact, but it just works. It's cinematic, and it's really the only time we see Michael kind of step out of his Westworldian robotic killer phase to where he's always just kind of moving forward, gliding forward. Now we finally get just a little bit of flexibility. And then Linda's death thereafter is also impactful because we've just seen Bob die after having this nice slow build, and now Michael's kind of toying with her. We're getting a little bit of personality from Mr. Myers. He's dressed up as a ghost. He has Bob's glasses on. We get a nice little exchange there where he's sitting there quietly and Linda's trying to get a rouse out of him. She's like, why is my boyfriend not bringing me my damn beer? Why is he not responding to me? And then you get that moment that's been talked about 1,000 times and so many horror fans know, where she's like, you see anything you like? And then of course you get her death. And you're like, oh, she said totally a lot, but she was a fun character. And this movie was just slowly building there for a while, and it was just tense. Now all of a sudden people are getting off left and right, and so you feel it. You definitely feel it. Annie's death, it's great. It's very prolonged. We get some long takes. You have her singing the song about, oh, Paul. You get all that. I love that she sounded better than me. You get all that, and it's kind of goofy and light, and it just keeps going and going and going. But you have nice little details in there to where the door was locked. She couldn't get in. Now it's unlocked. And she even remarks about it. So there you go. You have an aware, smart character. She's not just some dummy victim that's not paying attention to her surroundings. She gets in, and then she even notes that, why is my window kind of fogged up? And just as she does that, before she can panic, before she can whip her head around, Michael is choking her. And she's making these really aggravated, awful choking sounds. It's actually a really good scene there. Annie's death is powerful to me because she's doing the choking. And when I did a video where I did my top 10 kills in the Halloween franchise, somebody actually said that's one of their favorites. And I totally understand that. Even if, she's having fun at the end as she dies, it's still a wonderful moment. All the kills in this movie are wonderful. All of them stand out. All of them are kind of played up and they pay off a bunch of stuff before it, to where you really built the scene and you built the tension, you built the atmosphere, you built the mood, and you had us on the edge of our seats and you had us looking for the boogeyman and, oh my God, there he is. No, no, no. And that's what you should feel, instead of where a lot of the sequels, you're like, I'm just here to see people get off. And that's what Halloween Kills is going to be. We're getting a staggering body count. It's going to be exciting. It'll be fun, but it's going to be a roller coaster ride where you're just like, woo, this is fun. Not some sort of really twisted, dark horror maze that you're like, what's coming behind every corner? What's this? What's that? Oh my God, look at that. Look at the design here. Look at this atmosphere. I feel like I'm in another world. I don't know that Halloween Kills will be like that. That is my hope, but that is what we get with Halloween. And that's why these more simple kills that lack the gore and gratuity, they're still impactful and powerful. And I think modern horror filmmakers can actually take a lot from that. Take a lot from your inspirations. You love Halloween 1978 for a reason, so maybe dissect what that is and then try to, use a little bit of it. Don't just do clumsy homages. Really try to capture the mood and magic of Halloween 1978. And maybe borrow how to end a film, because what a wonderful ending. I've talked about how this movie is a slow build, but wow, when it gets there, boy, does it get there. Boy, is that zenith, that peak, that mountaintop, a high one. I love seeing the showdown between Michael and Laurie, and then you see that cinematography and the camera work. Boy, is it in effect here in the final third. Boys, there's some wonderful stuff there. Of course, one of my favorite moments is when you see Laurie there and she's kind of and then slowly you just have that dark room behind her and you have the door frame, and then slowly you just see them playing with the exposure until Michael's mask becomes more visible. You don't get stuff like that in films oftentimes. That is a great effect, and it's really ambitious for such a modest, measly funded film. But that's a type of tender love and care that was really put into this film, and it's all the better for it. That's a great scare, but it's a slow building scare, and it's one that you may not even catch right away, but then you see it and you're like, oh my God, run, Laurie. This movie will have you talking at your TV, and all the best horrors really should. You get him doing the sit-up. Who thinks of that? Whose idea was that? It very easily could have just been him, you know, he sees her, he comes to, maybe he's just discombobulated, he gets up, or maybe he just sits up like a regular human being. But no, you get this like weird, all lower abdominal, like no arms, nothing like that, just slow head tilt. And it really does breathe life into the character. And it makes him an icon. And it's all in the way he moves. And it's little things like that. And the way that that scene is framed and it's set up and the blocking and all this stuff. That's why if you don't understand and you say Halloween is overrated, well, then you're probably not still watching. You're probably not this far in the video. But it's stuff like that. It's stuff like that moment right there that makes Michael Myers a bar above Jason Voorhees to me. I'm sorry. It just is. I think there's something transcendent about Michael Myers. And I think Jason Voorhees is just a lot of fun. He's a good time of Splatterfest. Michael is something more, and it's all these little actions and moments that they give him throughout this film. And then you have the showdown, you have the closet scene, you have the unmasking, all these things that you feel, and it creates a definite vibe and an energy for you as an audience member. And it's everything you wanted, because last time you saw him unmasked, he was a child. Now we're getting the unmasking of an adult psychopath whose eye is all jacked up. And it's weird because John Carpenter wanted this angelic face, an angelic face of evil. How twisted, but how perfect. Just like everything else in this final scene. And then you get Laurie and you get Loomis.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
And it was. And you look over the railing, this fool just got shot 6 times! He got shot 6 times, but he's nowhere to be seen. And people are like, oh, sequel opportunity. No. It was to leave you with a lasting impression of evil. Michael is still out there. He could be anywhere. And so that's when we get to my favorite moment in the entire film, where we just do this little sequence that was created in the editing room, where we go to all the places he has been or all the places he could be, and you feel his presence still. You don't see him, but through the traumatic and terrifying events, the night he came home, he will forever be in those destinations, in those locales. You will feel his presence just like we are feeling as an audience as he breathes. You hear that breathing, and then you go to those amazing credits, just as amazing as the opening credits that I should have talked about sooner. The opening credits really set the tone for this film because they're so simple. It's just the orange and the black and the pumpkin and that amazing score. And it lets you know that you're going to get a simple little horror film, but it's going to be ratcheted up. There are going to be special elements about this. This is going to have everything you could ever want as far as an environment and an atmosphere and tension and stakes. It's all right there in the credits. So you have that nice moment at the end, and then you go right back into the credits and you have that score, and you're just like, wow, I'm shook. I just witnessed one of the best horror films of all time. Michael Myers is freaking phenomenal. What a great villain that they came up with. This Westworldian killer who has a mask like Eyes Without a Face and has this Hitchcockian thing about him and the way that he engages with his victims. It's all wonderful. You got a great final girl with some fun friends, some really nice dialogue that feels real, and then you have Donald Pleasence just elevating everything around him and taking dialogue that may have been clumsy or force-fed otherwise and punching it up and making it something that you just don't see anywhere else. And making him himself, this character is supposed to be an expository character, something that would last the test of time. Just like this movie that was supposed to be a little meager indie film, it lasted the test of time. It has a humongous legacy. It has all these sequels, and you can't take it away from horror. You can't take it away from film history without telling the tale of film completely differently. I love this film. It's one of my all-time favorite films. I think I've gone on for long enough. If by some chance you are still watching this, you saint. Thank you for sitting through all this and all of my babbling about this film. If you haven't subscribed by now, hopefully you will, because clearly I am passionate and I love this film. Thank you for watching this epic review. I hope you got something out of it. Be sure to comment down below. And of course, I just want you to have a fantastic day. I'm Nate from Nate Flicks saying that's a wrap.